Welcome back to The Explainer. So today, we're diving straight into something really fascinating, a hidden wealth transfer strategy that is quietly but steadily gaining traction right behind the scenes. While millions of everyday folks are still confidently pouring their life savings into property, there's this small, quiet group of investors doing something totally different. They're actually shifting their focus to something much older and honestly, potentially much more powerful, silver. We're going to break down this whole dynamic between silver and real estate and uncover exactly what's happening entirely out of the public eye. Now, you might be wondering, what if one single asset could completely outperform real estate in 2026? I know, it sounds a bit counterintuitive, right? I mean, real estate has literally been the bedrock of wealth building for generations. But the data and the trends we're analyzing today really suggest a major shift is approaching fast. And honestly, those who just sit around waiting for it to become front page news, they might miss the boat entirely. Okay, let's zoom out a bit and see how this builds, because to really grasp this, we've got to look at the big picture. Every few decades, we witness this massive, undeniable wealth transfer where capital just actively moves from one asset class to a completely new one. Think back to the massive stock market boom a few decades ago. Then we had that huge real estate explosion right after the 2008 crash. And of course, we all saw the staggering crypto surge in 2020. Well, right now, a lot of analysts are pointing to 2026 as the next major turning point. But here's the kicker. This time, the shift might not go where everyone expects it to. All right, let's dive into this. Section 1. Real estate warning signs. So, the economic headwinds hitting the property market right now are, well, they're heavy and they're expensive. First off, we've got rising interest rates, making mortgages significantly more costly than they were even just a couple of years ago. Add that to the fact that property prices are already sitting at historic highs, and you get this massive drop in affordability for your average buyer. People are just getting priced out. And for those who do manage to own, they're getting hammered with increasing taxes and escalating maintenance costs. You know how it is, the furnace only ever breaks down when it's freezing outside, and it is never a cheap fix. Basically, the sheer financial burden of owning real estate is just getting heavier by the day.
Which brings us to a pretty fundamental economic reality. When an asset just becomes way too expensive for the average person to touch, the growth inevitably has to slow down. In some geographic areas, we might see property prices totally stagnate, or, hey, even systematically decline. Now, I'm not saying real estate is dead by any stretch, far from it, but it does heavily suggest that property might not be the easy money slam dunk it used to be. The landscape is shifting.
Which naturally leads us to Section 2, the case for silver. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that silver isn't just some dusty, traditional precious metal used for coins or jewelry anymore. It is a wildly critical industrial asset that's literally powering the modern world. Look at this breakdown. Modern industrial demand is split almost perfectly across these massive growth sectors. We're talking about roughly 25% going straight into solar panels, another 25% fueling the exploding electric vehicle market, 25% into everyday electronics, and the last quarter driving the highly advanced hardware required for AI and tech development. Silver is quite literally the backbone of the green energy and tech revolutions. And this creates just an absolutely powerful economic setup. On one hand, you've got a limited physical supply of this metal. I mean, you can't just print more silver out of thin air. But on the other hand, because of all those modern industrial uses we just went over, demand is absolutely skyrocketing. So when you've got this tightly constrained physical supply crashing into rapidly increasing demand, well, you get the absolute perfect recipe for a massive price squeeze. Plus, unlike the heavy, super capital-intensive nature of real estate, silver brings some really unique advantages to the table. First off, it's highly liquid. It's incredibly easy to buy and sell whenever you need to. Second, it offers this really affordable entry point. You don't need hundreds of thousands of dollars for a down payment just to jump in. And lastly, a lot of experts are pointing out that it's still historically undervalued, especially when you compare it directly to gold. Actually, some analysts even believe silver could end up being one of the single most undervalued assets heading into 2026. So let's put them head to head. Section 3, silver versus real estate. And this brilliantly illustrates the exact trade-offs investors are facing right now. Over on one side, real estate gives you a stable, long-term asset that generates reliable rental income. Sure, but it requires an incredibly high amount of upfront capital, it has very low liquidity if you suddenly need cash fast, and it's highly sensitive to those rising interest rates. Then, on the flip side, you have silver. It's portable, it's highly liquid, and it comes with a much lower entry cost alongside massive high-growth potential. The catch? It can definitely be more volatile in the short term. So you're essentially weighing a stable but super expensive traditional asset against a highly accessible, high-growth, but slightly more volatile commodity.
So the real question you've got to ask yourself as we look down the road is this: do you want stability or do you want opportunity? Where exactly are you in your own financial journey right now? Are you looking to aggressively grow your capital, or are you just trying to anchor it down safely?
Let's explore how the pros are handling this in Section 4, the silent shift strategy.
Listen to this. When large institutions and smart investors start moving money, they don't announce it publicly, they move early. This right here is what so many people miss. If silver demand keeps rising, especially with all this green energy and tech growth pushing it, we could be looking at a massive structural shift of capital moving completely out of traditional assets and straight into metals. And honestly, by the time the average person catches wind of it on the evening news, the biggest gains are already going to be gone. That is the silent wealth transfer happening right under our noses.
But here's the truly fascinating part. This isn't about picking a team and going to war. Smart investors don't just go all in on one single idea. The real smart approach is all about diversifying. It makes total sense to keep some money in real estate for that nice baseline stability, but at the exact same time, it makes just as much sense to allocate some funds into silver to capture that explosive growth potential. You don't have to choose one over the other, you just balance them out. So the crucial point is this: in uncertain times, flexibility is power. If all your wealth is tied down to a massive anchor like an illiquid, heavy asset during a major market shift, well, you're kind of stuck. But if you've packed a liquid, portable asset with massive upside, think of it like having silver right in your backpack. You can adapt, you can pivot, and actually capitalize on these shifts exactly as they're happening. Which leaves us with one final, ultimate question to ponder as we wrap up today's explainer. Is silver the next big hidden opportunity, or will real estate somehow find a way to just keep dominating the landscape in 2026? Because one thing is absolutely certain: when 2026 rolls around, the biggest opportunities are not going to be the obvious ones. Thank you so much for joining me to unpack all these trends today. Stay curious, stay adaptable, and I highly encourage you to keep exploring these hidden dynamics for yourself.